Sorry. Yes. I have used one of these before.
Oh, you mean use it as a mic? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm living and learning as we go. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
No.
I knew it'd be one of us says no. Again, I echo what David said about welcome everyone. It's nice to see so many faces that I recognise from the past, and it's nice to remember Sudbury Town again, because to a lot of us Sudbury Town, it's not just a club, it was an institution, and it was part of our lives, and it was just part of us really, and a lot of us still regret the passing, but these things happen, and now we move on. And nice to see some lovely faces, as I said. Steve Hubbard is one that I remember very well. He took the penalty at Starbridge, which is the worst penalty I've ever seen. So much so, the goalkeeper had to come out and pick it up. I just thought I'd mention that. We also mention our tremendous skipper from the vast days, Gary's, everybody knows as Gojo. He's the fastest talking captain we've ever had. If you can understand him, you'll do it well. And the other one that I must welcome is dear old Timmy Norman. Where's Timmy? Oh, sorry. Timmy gave me one of my best stories, really. Sudbury were playing at Bishop Stortford in the semi-final of the East Anglian Cup, and they were 3 leagues above us, and with just minutes to go in injury time, we were losing 3-2. So the manager, Malcolm Mackenzie, said, everybody in the box. Everybody by the goalkeeper, because nowadays the goalkeepers stayed where they were. Anyway, they all crowd in a 6-yard area, ball comes over, bounced loads of times, out in. All of a sudden, the net bulges, and all our players turn away in the excitement. We'd actually drawn 3-3 to force the game to extra time. But Malcolm, because we couldn't see, didn't know who the goal scorer was. So as they came back, Timmy came to the wing and Malcolm said, "Who scored, Timmy?" He said, "We did." Well, don't you? You haven't heard it very often, have you? Oh, here he. And now one of our old-time heroes, Danny Crosby, who used to be a real background, very important member of Sudbury Town. And I'm indebted to him personally, and I'm sure several others. Welcome, Danny, nice to see you.
Sorry, I'm not.
No, that doesn't make any difference. And we also have Mr. Stato here, who tells us everything about Sudbury. I'll even tell you how Sudbury got on against Wormingford in 1934. And he'll tell you the goal scorers.
In order.
Yeah, in order, yeah. So unless you've got the evening off, I won't ask you anything about that. Anyway, let's get down to the real reason we're here, to welcome 2 heroes, really. Fantastic people. And I've got to say, when they got the job, if you don't mind me being absolutely brutally honest, I was rather concerned. Because at Sudbury, we've always had sort of top-line managers, but usually people who've been in the Football League. I'm thinking of Wally Hanlon, Jimmy Chalmers, Peter Smith, Colin Harper, all those sort of things. And in fact, the job was such a prestigious one that until the late 70s, the participant got a house in Sudbury, rent free, so it was a job worth having. So I've got to tell you that when I first heard that the management team from Stowmarket were taken over, I was a little bit concerned. And it took a few weeks, but they really, really did win me over. And when you think of the things that they have won, such as 3 Premier Cups, 3 Championships, 3 League Cup wins, Vase semi-final and then a Vase final, a day that we will never ever forget it, as long as we live till 104. Some of us looked over almost there now, but I don't, well, didn't mean you, Timmy. You still sparkle. A bit less than you would, but never mind. But another thing that really concerned me when I first joined, some of the players they brought over, and one who used to be my pet hate was Nigel Barton.
Oh.
And I used to say, I wonder what I brought him for. And after about half a dozen games, I was absolutely, well, he was a fantastic player. I felt very humble, and I did tell him, I said, you didn't used to rate you when you played against us, but I think you're one of the best players we ever had. And the work rate, I've never seen a bloke work like him without appearing to work. He just seemed to be everywhere, and I hope you two would agree with that. So basically, these two fellows won me over totally. And I had nothing but respect for them. And I've got to say, I've been in my career with 22 managers and 32 assistant managers. And of all the people I've sat next to, Don is my favourite. Because Don and I have the same outlook at football. We both think it's important, but it ain't that important. Whereas, so very often, Don would tell me about the potatoes he'd sown that weekend, but a lot of game was going on. And on more than one occasion, the manager, Mr. Head, would tell us off and said, will you shut up about what windows you get put in the right? But we used to have a little chat, did we not, Don? And you'll see how good he is at that. One story that I like about Don, when they were in business, he used to buy cover versions of music from wars. So if the Rolling Stones brought out something, it'd be somebody else would cover it, and he would buy these things. And the lads, when they were in his car, used to moan like anything. And one particular day when he was taking Paul Smith and McGavin to a game, he was playing one of these tapes, and they both moaned at Don. He said, turn that crap off. And he said, no, I'm going to turn it off. So Paul Smith ejected the cassette and threw it out the window. You remember that, Don, don't you?
Yeah, too well.
But without any more to do, I am now going to pass you over to the two managers, and we'll ask them one or two things, but we'll welcome them first, and just say, would you like to get used to the microphone as well? And you can say hello to everybody if you want to. And I've got a microphone here that's a bit technical for me.
It's got a switch on it,
I think this one was too tender, couldn't understand what you were saying.
No, it's not on. Talk amongst yourselves. Two.
16.
It's just not working. That's just not working.
Use this one, Tony. We'll all use it.
Yeah.
We'll use this one.
No, I'm going to give up on that. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to give up on that one. It's not working properly unless Mr. Reed can sort it out. But I think without any more to do, we'll start the interview and ask our two very honoured guests some questions. Did you want to say something, Mr. Reed?
No, I just want to borrow the microphone.
You can make it work. I'll give you 10 shillings.
Nobody's heard that. I'll take you on that.
The first question I'd like to ask you two learned gentlemen is what made the two of you decide to work together when you first undertook management right at the beginning? Which one's going to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, we decided to, it was Don really who decided. He'd come and ask me whether I wanted to come over to Stonemarket as assistant manager. And I'd done quite well in the Suffolk and Ipswich League, and on the back of that I was looking to get into higher football, better football, and Don gave me the opportunity. I don't know if you saw that way. Did you see something in me?
You singing?
Yeah, I mean, I just taken the job on the Stone Market after being over Sudbury, believe it or not, with the Sudbury Reserve side for a couple of years. And we did well there, and then Stone Market asked me if I'd go back and have a go at lifting them up a bit because they finished actually bottom of the league. And from there, how I was going to get in touch.
Someone's shooting. Someone coming with a gun.
And then going on from there.
Sorry?
Oh, that's on there.
Works out the cracking, does it?
Hope so.
1, 1, 2. Yeah, okay, fine.
Ish.
And when I went back and decided to take this job on in Stone Market again, I felt that I needed to have somebody alongside of me. And I just happened to be going through different names and I don't know. And I had to go to watch a game at Needham Market, if you remember.
No.
Good stuff. And you were there.
Yeah,
We
my team.
got having a chat to there. I think you just finished at Cranes at the time.
Okay.
And asked if you'd like to come on board with me and have a go at sorting something out at Stone Market. You said, give me a couple, 3 days. And with that, you came back to me and said, yeah, Don, I'll have a go. And Martin came, and that's where we went from there.
I think we should say also that was a time when they moved to Greens. Was it Meadow?
Meadow, yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite an exciting time for the club and a good time to go into it. So I was comfortable going as assistant manager to Don. And obviously it all went quite well. Is that enough, Tony, or have we got to sing a song?
No, that's fine. Can you hear me all right now? Yeah? Without the crackle? I come with or without crackle. So what made you want to apply as a job at Sudbury when you've been fairly successful at Stone Market?
Well, actually, we didn't apply for the job.
Well, thanks for that.
Always just straighten you out on that one. No, it actually turned out we were, pushing along with a reasonably good side at Stone Market at the time, and things were going reasonably well. If we had a problem with the reserves and get that sorted out as well, and at that time, the chairman came out of work and he said, Don, he said, we just had a letter in from Sudbury saying they'd like to see if we're interested in taking up the job at Sudbury. So I mentioned this to Martin, and after the 21 days, which I had to give a notice to, had a phone call from dear old Ron, and we said, yeah, we'll come and meet you, and we did. And one of Ron's, presume one of his favourite places, that was a pub. And it was Queen's Head, if I remember rightly, in Hadley. And Ron was there with Terry and Danny and somebody else, I forget what he's called him. They used to call him Muff or something like that, I can't remember. And we had a good night in there and had a good chat with us, and we decided to take the job on. And that's what we did.
Yeah. Away we go.
Do you want to add to that or not?
Not really. I think we've mostly covered it. We relished the challenge of going to such a big club. We thought we could handle it, even if other people didn't think we could handle it. So that was that, really.
Right. Fingers crossed. What were your thoughts when you first took over and arrived at the club?
It's you, Tony. It's definitely you.
I knew I shouldn't have eaten that curry.
We were relatively comfortable. I mean, Don obviously knew quite a lot about Sudbury, so we weren't total strangers, although the setup was different. But it was totally new to me, and was pleased to have the opportunity to see if we could keep them being the premier non-league club in Suffolk. And so that's what our task was. And we had no fears that we wouldn't succeed in something. We weren't worried about the fact our background wasn't as good as other people's. And we got on with things on the back of that.
Yeah, I think Martin has more or less covered that one. It was laid out really in front of us. I think you just won the league and League Cup that year. We came over for the last game, I remember, and so on. And you'd had a good year then, and we thought, well, there's something to still, a challenge to just follow what like Peter Smith and Mal Mackenzie and all them had done. And we felt we could have a go at it and do well. And I thought if people like Ron and Terry and Danny and all them on behalf of the club thought we were good enough to have a go at it, that was it. We were going to go for it. We're going to see what we can. Where can we get with it all? And I think from that went quite well. I mean, we needed to, in our opinion, bring in a few players that we wanted who were our own players. The disappointing thing was we...
Like Nigel Barton.
Yeah, Nigel Barton, yeah.
What a great player.
Brian Klug, Louis Newman, Dobby Hunt, more, but Phil Boylan, Dean Garland, Dean Barker. But there was good players at the club as well. But you just need to know and you sort yourself out from there, and that's what we did, and away we went. How do you want to grapple with that one?
I'm glad you mentioned some of the players, because in my humble opinion, in my years at Sudbury, he's the best centre half I ever saw. Later on in their life was Tony English, but the best pairing of centre halves, without any question at all, was Phil Boylan and Gary, because they had whatever the other one didn't have, they had, and they were fantastic. And the players you brought really fitted in. That's the thing. Even though sometimes you think, why has he changed that? I personally wondered why he got rid of Osborne and brought Cluggy in. But after 2 or 3 games, again you were proved right, and you gave us one of the best teams that we have ever seen at that level of football. Possibly the best team we've ever seen. And you could go through the team and you could say, well, when they did have an off day, we were lucky to have the goalkeeper we had, Mr. Garnham, and everybody was a good player. But together, you made them, and I thought even better. Because your style of management was a bit different. You're not a shouter and an aggressive person. You're a born organiser. You get everything so well organised that if I ever said to you, I've just heard on the grapevine that a player has become available, you normally would say, yes, I've already gone to see him a fortnight ago. So he was always ahead of the game. And as a pair, I think you're fantastic, because there's always going to be people who moan about it. Football's love a moan. Don't know what it is, they love a moan. And if they weren't happy not being in the side, or they wanted a positional change, or they wanted why do you get taken off, they would always go to Don after and say, Don, I want to work with you. And I would have a word with Don, and Don would have a word with them, and they'd have a drink in the bar, and it was all smoothed over. Nothing ever changed or happened, but he had this gift of smoothing things over. And everybody thought, I've told Don, so that'll be fine. But Don kept it to himself, and that was fine. But as a pair, I think you take some beating, really, and I'm absolutely proud that you are managers, or were managers of Sudbury, and if I can say so without being presumptuous, and still remain friends of mine, despite me being in traffic times. But anyway, let's move on. Excluding Cohen and Wembley, what was your favourite game? What's a game that stands out? We'll come to the Vase at the end, so the finals of the Vase, What's your top game, in your opinion, that you witnessed? You go first.
Yeah, my favourite game was Hungerford, the semi-final. The reason being, we were 3-0 up at half-time, and that was the best second half I've ever lived through, because we knew we were going to Wembley. You can't do much more than sit there knowing that you were going to Wembley, because they weren't going to catch us up. So that's the reason for my that being my favourite game, and the reason why. You got one?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I really enjoyed, was taking on what Martin said was true. But I also went the Rossendale game when we were up in Rossendale. Yeah. The weather we got there was bleak, and all the supporters were there. You see them, they were in real good vocal form before the start of the game. We walked into our dressing room. That was like walk through the River Thames. There was water running through it. It was cold. There was no heating on. And I'm kind of, Jesus Christ, they're playing the old game here, good problem.
Yeah, we did.
And the boys got on with it. We went out there, the pitch was
Quite
a sea of mud, wasn't it? It really was. And to see them fellas go out there that day and what we did, that was a fantastic result. And really enjoyed that one. I really did. There were several more. But that one was, to me, the one that stuck out on the way.
Yeah. Just to get a perspective from the supporters, what's your favourite game, Snobsy? You've seen so many games.
I would have said Rosendale, I would say Cone Way as well.
Ah,
That's an interesting game.
even though we lost?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gary, what was your favourite? What's your game that you remember?
My favourites was the one we played. Come back to
We finish at 5, by the way. One of the things you never ever should forget is the people who work behind the scenes at places like Sudbury. And when we had that success, we owed a lot to our directors, who were a fantastic bunch, led by dear old Ron. And he was a charismatic, larger than life in every way character. But believe you me, without them, we wouldn't have had the success we did. And I don't think we would if Ron wouldn't been there, because Ron led from the front. And our supporters were fantastic. Wherever we went, we outshouted the others, and they gave us a great lift. The players used to say supporters are great today, but if on a very rare occasion anybody stepped out of line, Ron would immediately go and say, "Wait, we're representing Sudbury here," and he would take them into the bar, buy them a drink. that was the director's answer to most. But no, without the directors, we wouldn't have been anywhere. And I mean, there are people who used to go to away games. They used to carry the kit. They put the kit in the dressing room and then disappear straight away to the nearest pub. And they would come back about 2 minutes to 3, and every one of them would always pay to get in, wherever they were. They never ever had a free ticket, and they were fantastic. And they're all good. But can I just ask you, how did you personally get on with Ron Ashdown? Can you start first?
Well, I found him a great character. You know, I mean, he was like me. He enjoyed the drink, probably more than what I did. But he was good. I liked Ron. He came out the line.
Yeah.
He was, you know, he had his opinions, but he was all right. He was straight, and that was a big thing. But no, I never had any problems with Ron. I enjoyed his company, and that way he carried on. He was all right, but he was a Sudbury man through and through, and yeah, it's a shame he's still in there. As far as I'm concerned, because he was just a genuine bloke on that side of it. I mean, I know everything perhaps went wrong on the finish. I don't know, But as regards to football, and chairman of our football club, he did a wonderful job.
That's the only thing you can go by.
Yeah, I've never come across anyone in football like Ron. But having appointed us, he supported us fully, and that was terrific. We always knew we had that, Danny and Tad, you know, they were all really supportive, and that's what you needed. You know, you didn't want them causing trouble in the background, so that was very important. Okay.
You mentioned the Hungerford game, particularly the home game. And with we lost the previous semi-final, drew the first one in this against Hungerford. So on the day of the Hungerford game, home game, I was really nervous. It was so near, yet still so far. We all met at Ron's house. We had a big photograph taken of everybody to commemorate the time. And it wasn't until a couple of days later, I said, no Danny Crosby, and no Tony Bible on that photograph. Why? The reason was, Danny said to me, how do you feel, mate? And I said, terrible. He said, let's go up Highbury Barn, never drink. So we went up to Highbury Barn, just the two of us, and I had about 4 rum and peps, I think, and that settled me down. I could hardly walk, but and I've got to say that in my life, I have only been, come back to you, Gary, but I've only been drunk 4 times in my life, and each time Danny Crosby was and years ago now. Particularly, do you remember Rushton away, when we finally stayed up? God, well, they put me on the back of the bus, and within 20 yards the bus stopped to let someone go, and I slid off the seat and in the gangway, and they left me there till we got back to Sudbury. Very powerful people. Yeah, sorry, Gary, I digress.
Yeah, one of my favourite games was when we played in the East Anglia Cup final at Carrow Road. It was a long time ago, but good game.
Well, we're questioning whether it was at Carrow Road or not.
No, it wasn't like that.
Sorry, is it Colchester?
But we definitely were we managers then, Gary?
No, I don't think.
No, we weren't. I didn't think.
No, Malcolm was.
Yeah.
Because I had a big row with that Malcolm after the game, yes, I always remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your best game can't really be a Melton's time, but it's not allowed.
Yeah, would you mind leaving now, please? Another thorny problem. We're only talking about Sudbury now. Who's your most favourite player, for any reason? You start first.
My favourite player was Paul Smith. I did write something down about him. Totally committed every game, strong, nasty, and a goal scorer. And I played against him on Sundays, and he always gave me a hard time. But I must say I give him a hard time as well, because I was that sort of player. So he was terrific. The other, I've got to mention someone else, Steve McGavin, because I went and watched Steve playing for Thetford. We were, chatting, seeing if we were going to make a move for him. We got him. I think he cost £1,000, and he was a terrific signing. It was a shame he wasn't available for the Vars, because I think he might well have made the difference. But I remember in the period from when we signed him, he got 3 hat-tricks, and he scoring all the while. He was a magician really, as far as the way he played his football. So that was a terrific player that I was in.
He's quite right about Smithy. I mean, he was some player. But I find it difficult to pick anybody out, to be honest with you, Tony. Big Dean Barker was another big fan. But you go from all Gary and Phil. They all done their bit. I do find it hard with Smithy. They're all good players. We were lucky there. Well, I'm so lucky we found them. Some of them were there when we came, and they all gelled in well and finished for us. And good players.
Yeah, I was actually thinking as well.
Physio weren't too bad.
I didn't just mean who was the best player, but we all have favourites, and I wondered who your favourite was. I mean, without any question, of all the time I was at Sudbury, John Taylor was my favourite. Very good player, but I liked him as a person, so he's my favourite. There's always one at the club that's a bit of a pain in the arse, and you just don't like him, or he gives you a lot of hard work and that sort of thing. Who's the one that you think, oh crikey, he's a pain? Don't mention yourself, Don.
Oh, I was going to mention you. I find that a hard question to answer. I mean, if anybody had pain, it'd be awkward, as with Thorby. But again, he was such a good player again, and he was really good. But you know, it's hard to say he was awkward. But I mean, sometimes you can talk to Thorby, when you say black is black, he probably says white. But he was a good player. But I find it hard to answer that one, Tone. I don't bet Mark.
Yeah, it's difficult, but I think the way football is, every one of them caused us problems at various times, because that's what happens. But you know, you get over that. That's part of being a manager. You deal with that and move on. So I don't think there was an individual. I'd look at them all at various times. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, if you feel it. I learned from a very, very early age that it wasn't a very good idea to comment on players. Sometimes the manager would say, you said so-and-so played very well, and you didn't agree with the substitutions. I realised after a while that you're part of a team, and it's not a good idea to say things in front of players that can come back. So when players used to say to me after a while, how did you think I played? I just used to say, okay. And if they say, did you think I should have been taken off? Even if I disagreed, I used to say, I'd have taken you off earlier. And that way, they don't ask you anymore. And one player once said to me, surely everybody, because they're not very bright, these footballers, they said, do you have favourites? Of course you have favourites, but I wasn't going to tell them. So, have you got favourites? I said, no, I treat you all with equal contempt. And the bloke said, thank you very much. As, not at Sudbury, but Ben Embry, when he was in charge of Braintree, was so disappointed, he actually did say that was a debacle. And one of the players said, thank you. He thought that was praiseworthy. Thank you. Steve McGavin was possibly the best player I'd ever seen at Sudbury, and it became obvious that he could play at a far higher level, which he did. But his character, he's a bit slippery when it came to money. we paid for him, do you remember? We paid for him to go to Scotland for a trial with Dundee on the train. And he hadn't got money, so we gave him the cash to go on the train. Well, he didn't go, he eventually went to Colchester, he didn't go, we never did get our money back. And that's just the truth. But the one I really do like, he had an injury once, and he worked at a place that was next door to a physio centre. So he said to me, would you be offended if I went to this place in Bury, because I could be there in 2 minutes, whereas I would come to Sudbury. He said, if you want to make your own arrangements, that's absolutely fine. So he did. So a couple of weeks later, he's okay. And he came in, and we had a look at him and said, yeah, you're fit now, something. And he gave me a bill. He said, there's a bill. I said, what's that? He said, it's the bill of the physio man. So I said, well, we're not paying the bill. I said, you wanted to do it, so you should pay for it. He said, I'm not paying for it. I said, well, that's how I see it. And just then, by coincidence, Danny Crosby walked in the treatment room and turned to Danny, and I quickly told him the situation. He gave Danny the bill, so he said, what shall I do with it? And I remember Danny's reply, and I used the exact words he was, you've got two choices, mate. You either pay it or you stick it up your arse. I never did know what he did. how important, particularly in the Vars runs, did you think Peter Catchpole was to you? Was he scouting and reporting back on teams so that you didn't have to see them beforehand, but he gave you a report? How important do you think he was?
You can start first, Don.
Well, from my point of view, and from Mark Pascal's word as well on that, he was brilliant. I mean, his detail and everything was terrific. I mean, and he went miles didn't he, for us, you know.
Around the country.
And he wouldn't just be on one player, he'd go right through the lot. And he'd done everything to detail. He was excellent. Excellent person. Everything was right about Catchy. For the club, he was good. He was clean. And he was good footballer in his time. And he obviously knew what he was up to. And he went away and done a hell of a job, of course.
I think that's covered that one.
Covered that one.
One thing I remember about Peter, we often used to go out together as a foursome, and we always went out on a Friday, but mainly because of his Saturday commitments. But I said to him one day, when you come out with us, you always pick a Friday. And he said, well, it leaves the rest of the weekend to enjoy myself. I used to say that. Tell us about your feelings about Cone Dynamos.
You can start first.
No, just going back to Catchy, I should have said, we really regarded ourselves, Tony, us two, David Webb, as part of the team, and Catchy was an integral part of that team. So he was, very important to us, and went on and done a terrific job. What was your question?
I can't remember now. About Cone Dynamos, what's your memories of Cone Dynamos?
Cone Dynamos, I mean, obviously they were an excellent side. At the time, we were quite annoyed with them in so much as they brought a good professional footballer in who made his debut in the semi-final, and he was a good player. I have to be measured on this because I don't know, given the same situation, whether I would have done the same thing. So, we were upset that he played on that day and did well for them and they won. But, looking back as I do now, I don't hold any grudges against them. I think that's what football teams do.
Yeah, sad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I should mention too, when we talk about everybody at the club, putting their weight and being really good, directors, players, everybody, spectators, but we were fortunate at the time to have such a fantastic secretary as David Webb. David's one of these people who can only do things the right way, and he was fantastic, and is, until he retired, probably one of the best, if not the best secretary I've ever come across.
Yeah.
So well done, David. So, of all the things that you've done, obviously winning leagues and winning cups is fantastic, but the day that everybody still talks about is the day we went to Wembley. And I still remember somebody writing on the Sudbury sign at Bottom Hill, last one out, turn the lights out, and things like that. We took 10,500 people to Wembley, and we still remember it vividly, even though it was a long, long time ago. But I'm not just talking about the game, I'm talking about the whole gambit, really, of preparation, what it was like after winning the semi-final and to the final, and how you got on. Because that was a difficult time playing football matches between the semi-final and the final, but we did very well, and you did very well. So what's your memory of that particular time? Don can start first.
What? The memories of what?
Getting the whole Wembley experience, even before or afterwards.
Well, I mean, when we knew we got to Wembley, I mean, that everything was just a blood everywhere you went. I mean, but me and Martin sort of kept in touch with each other on everything that was going on, and it was just an exciting time. I mean, the support we had in this club, the fans, and they were there, they come down and watch us train, and the build up to it all, and things like that. It was incredible. And it would never go away, I don't think, you know. I mean, not to Wembley was, well, it's what everybody dream of, I think, as a player or as a manager or supporters or what. Going there that day and the build up to it went on for quite a while. I mean, you always think, well, players hopefully won't make, not how many games we had before we actually win the Wembley, but, you know, players might think, I don't want to get hurt on this one. But nobody pulled out of anything, and everything just went reasonably well. And yeah, how great. 33 years ago, is it now?
Yeah.
Pretty well all in there, but there we go.
The whole occasion went really, really well, apart from the result. And in actual fact, that was disappointing in so much as I thought we should have won it on the day.
Oh.
But that, you know, in the end, we didn't win it on the day, and we deservedly lost at Peterborough. And you know, it can't be any argument about that. But the whole occasion, you know, it's a very individual thing. Everyone did their thing within the whole setup, and you know, we all thoroughly enjoyed it in our own way, and then collectively. And they were a terrific bunch of boys as far as that sort of thing is concerned.
Football management is about making really tough decisions. We who are not managers, we talk about it beforehand and we talk about it afterwards. When you're a manager, you have to make a call. One of the biggest and bravest calls that you both made, in my opinion, was when we played at Hungerford and we drew no score. Being as unbiased as I can, I think we were lucky not to lose 2-0 at least.
Dean Garnham saved it.
Yeah, and you'd previously asked Yarmouth to cancel their game on the coming Tuesday so we could have some time to train. But we played so poorly that you asked them to reinstate the game, and we played at Yarmouth and we lost 2-1 actually, but it doesn't matter. And then came the decision that you made on the Saturday to drop Brian Club, and people were surprised. I was surprised, and we win 6-0. Brian, he's a good friend of yours and still is. So it was a tremendously difficult time, and you deserved a heap of praise for being that brave. I know he didn't react, but what did you say? What was your thinking behind it? And what did you say to him when he's not going to play? You can be first one.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a momentous decision. Not easy at all. But we felt that in the first leg of the semi-final, he hadn't been playing to his normal standard, and within our setup against Hungerford, he didn't really contribute as we'd hoped he would. And so, you know, we obviously had lots of conversations about that. We don't do it lightly, but we decided that we'd go for that, and we did. And he was really upset. I'd you know, go around and tell him, and he had the blazers and all that sort of stuff. He gave them back to me, so I took them, you know, back to the final. But he obviously worked out in his head and realised that, you know, that wasn't just being nasty to him. That was about a team effort, and that we thought the better team would be without him. But he's a good friend of mine. Still is a good friend. You know, I don't see him as much now, but yeah, I think sometimes you have to make decisions like that, and we were up for it. So I'm quite proud that we did do what we done.
So
Yeah.
right. What do you say? You haven't done?
No, I mean, Martin has covered that one. I mean, exactly what he said. I mean, I just wondered if the workload he'd had at Ipswich was taking quite a bit of his time or whatever, but he seemed to be just slipping behind a little bit in his sort of performances, perhaps, and whether long hours, I don't know what, but at the end of the day, the decision was made that he was upset, but he definitely come back to us, and he came back better for it too, didn't he?
Yeah.
And so we moved on.
He played in the return leg, didn't he?
Sorry?
We played. No, not the. What one did he play in? Was that? No, he came on, didn't he?
He came on.
That's right. That's what he was.
Probably went on with his ankle, and he came
That's
on
right.
and played the
And he
second
played
half.
well, didn't he?
And played really,
Yeah,
really
that's
well.
right. Yeah.
And that was the Brian that we knew.
That's right. So it had actually done some good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did no harm at all.
Thank you. Well, it's still a very, very brave decision, because you could have just said, oh well, we'll run with the team as it is, and I was very impressed, and I wasn't surprised that he lost his temper, because he was very disappointed, but I think when he slept on it, I think he realised that and I've spoken to him since, and he thought it was a fair decision, but I think it's a feather in your cap that he was strong enough to be able to make that. But what I'd like to do, before we close this session, I'd like to open the floor up to anybody who has any questions whatsoever, and we'll have a question and answer session, if there's any questions.
Do you think you'd have won the final if the boy Henry had been sent off?
You can hear that.
Yeah. Mike Henry sending off.
Yeah.
The bloke spat in his face, didn't he, the other way?
Yeah, that was disappointing, because I don't think that helped us at all. But decisions made. We were down to 10 men. You get on with it, don't you? In the end, we did the best we could. But the most disappointed person was him. He was absolutely gutted. But that's a good point. I thought. Thought he hadn't had a brilliant game for us, but we obviously were going to miss someone like that.
Was that when Moggy went off?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I was a fullback when I played, and if someone had done what they'd done to Moggy, done that to me, I'd have done the same thing as Moggy, and that was awful. But Dobby came on. He'd done well for us as well, and I don't think that made any difference to the result. To be honest, I don't know. We perhaps might have gone on and run it. I think Martin hit the nail on the head. We lost it earlier on in the game, really, but we had a couple of free chances. But we played well on the day there, and unfortunately just come away with a draw. But these things happen in football, and for old Mikey, he was gutted, he was, but he got over it, I'm sure.
But he didn't get a medal then, did he?
No.
No, he didn't get a medal.
So
did They do today, don't they?
Anybody else?
If there was anybody you could have signed in your time at Sudbury, but you couldn't sign them, no matter what the reason why, was there a particular player you wanted to get?
I didn't get your question.
Was there any player that we would have liked to go in Sudbury that we couldn't get hold of? Pelly.
Well, I can only think of one.
Who's that?
I think his name.
See how good you are, guess it.
You're at the right place. I'll give you a membership form.
Yeah. He was lad from Woodbridge, wasn't he? We rated him quite highly.
Simon Fryer.
Yeah,
That's the
Simon
one.
Fryer, isn't
He was good. Yeah, we did try and get.
Yeah, we played him a couple of times.
Couple of
Hopefully,
games,
like, but he was just loyal to.
That's what it
he
was.
Just loyal to Woodbridge.
Total loyalty, yeah.
We'd like to have Simon over there. Yeah, I think he did. He was more than a useful player.
Anybody else want to ask anything or comment on anything Mr. Crosby.
I haven't heard much said about a certain place, a person whose nickname was Psycho.
Dean.
I personally thought he's probably one of the best players that Sudbury had because of his strength and his cleverness as well as his aggression. I don't know what your view is on that.
I share that, Danny.
You have a go first.
We share it.
Well, he was, he did have a lot. I mean, he was strong, big. He could play football as well. That's what a lot of people didn't take, you know, think he could. But big, hard, strong, so, but he could play football as well. And he was a good player. There's no doubt about that. There's anything. Where he got this word psycho from, I don't know about. He got it, but yeah, very, very good player.
Yeah, excellent.
Excellent.
Do you want to comment, Mark?
Well, really, I can't say much more than we have said. You know, I had a good relationship with him. I played against him on Sundays again, and that was horrible. He was, you know, such a powerful player. You know, could head the ball, you could pass the ball, but his tackle is the thing that worry you. You know, if you were to get on the end of his tackles, you were in trouble. So he was a terrific player. Yeah, loved him being in our club.
Yeah. Felt the team always felt safe around him, didn't they?
But really, you know, most of the players, we felt like that about. You know, we were, you know, very fond and passionate about all the players that we had, and Dean fitted into that.
Yeah. I agree with everything Danny said. I think he was a fantastic player. I mean, they eventually called him the bog monster, didn't they? Because when we used to play in the heavy pitches, he was covered from head to foot. And but he was a very fair player. He wouldn't cheat or anything like that. And if he fell over, he'd sometimes shout to the referee, "I fell over then, it didn't touch me." Where some people would make the best of it. But he didn't. He was very, very honest. And like a lot of people, really tough and hard. But if you had anything like a blister and you were going to pop the blister, he used to make such a fuss. But, not like me, because I'm very tough and hard. Anybody else like that?
Yeah, it's less of a question, more of a comment about the strength of character that Marty had to play in that semi-final, having gone through that personal tragedy the day before.
Yeah.
That was a very good point, actually. Very good point. He was that sort of fellow, though, wasn't he?
That Marty thought.
Yeah, Marty was again one of that wonderful team, and he had lots of qualities. But you know, playing in the game on the back of his wife saying that, you know, should stand by him, was fabulous. You know, really, we appreciated it. We needed him. He was a terrific player for us. So you know, everyone, the rest of the team, Gary would tell you, you know, full of praise for his actions in that situation, as anyone would be. Yeah.
Want to say anything, Don?
But just one thing I always remember about Dean Barker, when you say he looks after everybody, and which he did, and I never forget we played at Yate. The pitch was quagmire, if you remember, it was raining, and Smithy in them days had long hair, and when a bit of rain come on it, Smithy didn't want to know, he wanted to come off, he wanted to drink it. So we took him off, you remember, about 5 or 10 minutes from the end, and because Smithy thought that was great, he got in, had a bath and everything. But what made me laugh on that one, he got in, while he was in the bath, the match finished, we come in, and Big Dean turned around, and I don't know whether Gary don't remember or not, Dean got a hold of your bag, he got a hold of something, deep and eat. And he filled up Smithy's pants with it. Not a hanger. Smithy comes out of the bath, you know, said, "I'm a hot bath, lads, you get in there." Put on his shorts, put on his pants, and all of a sudden, you see he started shaking and rolling
I
around
remember that.
everywhere. And all of a sudden, he turned in, he said, "Oh, dirty." I'm not going to say the other word. He come out and he said, "Who did it?" And you looked at Smithy, and you said, "Dean Barker." And Smithy turned around and he said, "I just wondered." I'll never forget that.
Terrific. Yeah.
That's what Dean Barker was from all.
Anybody else before we?
I used to sell the Green newspaper, and we used to sell sort of 100 normally on a Saturday night. And then when we had the big parade in Sudbury, they gave me 1,000 papers to sell. I'm never going to sell those. We sold 1,000 papers, no problem at all. I just wonder what your memories are of the open top bus coming through town. If you have any memories, I would imagine it was a celebration time. I know we hadn't won, but we hadn't lost all the same at Wembley.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, it was nice for us to have that, trip round Sudbury and for people to see us. That wasn't the most important occasion that we were involved in, but we all enjoyed it. It's being together again, so we all enjoyed that together. That was good.
Yeah, and after that was terrific. I mean, we got on that bus and we came round and sent the whole. I mean, it felt like the whole town had
that's right.
turned out. That was absolutely brilliant. Went one my system, then with the whole way round, and everywhere was just full of Sudbury people.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I remember the bus driver Arthur, who was sometimes drunk. Remember his name? Oh, he's the only one. We were going to Wembley. He lost his way. He didn't know where to go. And he was in contact with the police all the time. And at the finish, the police said, "Well, just pull over. We'll come and find you." And we got an escort in there because he didn't know where he was. He's a bus driver.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry?
Steve wanted to put you that down, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I mean, I played for Don and Mike, but I don't actually know much about your personal football careers when you played at all. I gather you played with Hughes Cherry, but what were you like as players?
I can tell you what Don was like, if I remember.
Are you talking about me or Martin?
Well, both
I don't
of you.
know anything about you
I
playing.
could tell you what Don was like as well.
Don was the biggest moaner that you've ever come across. He moaned about everything. And I'm sure he won't mind telling you, in those days when he was playing, top referees could still referee on the Eastern Counties League. So we had some international referees like Norman Burtonshaw, who was refereeing a game Worcester Market one evening. And as he came, I remember that, Don said to him, "International referee, you're the worst referee I've seen." And he said to Don, "Well, funny enough, you're the worst fullback I've ever seen." That was funny. But he did half like a moan, but really, seriously, he was a really, really good player. Just remember, I've been playing for Suffolk when it was an honour to play for Suffolk, and he's a really, really good player, very, very hard, and one of the best players at that time. This is what you told me to say, wasn't it? No, seriously, he was very good.
You can't be one of the who Martin played for.
You can tell him what you
Yeah, I mean, Don had a much better and a higher career than I did. I was useful and got some honours in local football around Ipswich. And I made my way through Stowmarket, funnily enough, when Ray Baker was manager.
Yeah.
And then I went to Harwich because I was quite promising, and then I broke my leg, and had quite a long while getting over that, and came back and broke my leg the same leg, same place the next year. So I decided that I would not attempt to play in higher football. I would stick with the SIL. And I had a terrific SIL career from my point of view. Obviously, I didn't, have a career like Don did in the Eastern Counties League. But I mean, football is all about enjoyment at whatever level. Yeah. And we've both said earlier, that we've got so much from football. We've enjoyed it so much. It's been so good for us. We've met so many people. That's an absolute wonderful thing. I've got 4 boys. Well, I shouldn't say that now because the 5th one's a girl and she might play football, but no, she doesn't. I've got 4 boys who've all enjoyed you know, their football careers. And my wife was over there. She's bared the burden of a lot of the football and my football career, and all credit to her for that. Yeah. Bit of a rant there, I suppose.
Tony, just one thing I'd like to say. What was Don James like as a player? I remember many years ago when he was playing for Stowmarket, and Sandy Sandlands cleaned him out, and he lay there in the mud, you know, and I walked past and I said, "Now you know what it feels like, Jamesy," and he flipped his fish and I'll have you in the bar.
Can you sort that out later? Yes, David.
Yeah, just a quick one. We talked about Marty Thorpe. The biggest problem I ever had with Marty was his old man. If someone lost, you've got to keep him away from the referee. He was on the pitch when he chased him.
Yeah, that's right.
I can't think of his name now, but he's lovely bloke, but he was always after the referee when he lost.
Remember that.
Well, I think we'll draw that and this particular section to a close. Before David's going to come up and tell us some things about our organisation. But I would like, on the audience behalf, to thank both of you for coming over. It's been an enthralling insight to your management, and we really do appreciate you coming, and we have a big thank you. Shall we give them a very, very warm hand of applause?